Tonight, let your mind slow down as history softens into shadow and story. We'll wander through the strange truth behind rival Nazi brothers, silent factories, and shoes that reshaped the world. We'll drift into the biggest conspiracies whispered in 2025, where power hides in plain sight, and we'll descend quietly into the Pentagon's black budgets, numbers that disappear without a sound. You don't need to solve anything, remember anything, or stay awake for answers. Before you settle in, let me know what time it is for you and where you are in the world. Just relax, listen, and let these stories carry you gently into sleep. Forget everything you know about corporate competition. This isn't just business, it's a blood feud. Born in a laundry room and forged in the fires of Nazi Germany, two brothers turned their hometown into a literal war zone where your shoes determined your soul. From sponsoring Jesse Owens under Hitler's nose to a bomb shelter betrayal that sparked a 60-year silence, the story of Adidas and Puma is a psychological thriller disguised as sports history. This is the insane true account of the laundry boys who built global empires out of pure, unadulterated spite. The Laundry Boys. You're walking through a tiny, quiet town in Germany called Herzogenaurach. It looks like a pretty postcard, but if you look closer, you'll notice something really weird. The town is literally split down the middle by a river. On one side, everyone is wearing Adidas. On the other side, it's strictly Puma. If you're wearing the wrong shoes on the wrong side of the river, people won't even talk to you. They call it the town of bent necks because the first thing anyone does when they meet you is look down at your feet. This isn't just a weird fashion trend. It's the result of a 60-year blood feud between two brothers that got so toxic, it divided an entire city. But before they were global tycoons, they were just two kids in a laundry room with a crazy dream. The story starts in 1898 with Rudolf Rudi Dassler, and 2 years later, his brother Adolf Addy was born. They grew up poor. Their dad worked in a shoe factory, but it wasn't enough to keep the lights on, so their mum started a laundry business on the side. The boys spent their childhood delivering clean clothes all over town, which earned them the nickname the Laundry Boys. But here's the thing. While Rudy was the social butterfly who could sell ice to a polar bear, Addy was the quiet nerd who was obsessed with sports and how things were made. Then, World War I happens. Both brothers get drafted and sent to the front lines. When they finally come home, the world is a mess. Germany's economy is trashed, and their mum's laundry business has 0 customers left. They were broke, but Addy had an idea. He realized that back then, people wore the same shoes for everything, running, walking, working, it didn't matter. He thought, what if I made a shoe specifically for athletes? There was just one problem. He had no money, no materials, and the town didn't even have electricity because of the war. Most people would have quit, but Addy was on another level. He started wandering onto old battlefields, scavenging for anything he could find. He'd rip the leather off discarded military helmets and pull strings out of broken parachutes just to have something to build with. To get power for his tools, he literally hooked up a leather trimmer to a bicycle wheel and made his friends pedal as fast as they could while he worked. Talk about a no-excuses mindset. Surprisingly, these battlefield shoes were actually good. They were durable, they were light, and people in town started noticing. Addy was a total perfectionist, staying up all night obsessing over every single stitch. By 1924, Rudy saw the potential and quit his job to join his brother. They officially launched the Dassler brothers' sports shoe factory. On paper, they were the perfect team. Addy was the genius creator, and Rudy was the high-energy salesman who could get their shoes into every locker room in Germany. At this point, they were just two brothers working out of their mum's laundry shed, probably dreaming of becoming local heroes. They had no idea that within a few years they'd be helping a global superstar make history at the Olympics, joining the Nazi Party, and eventually trying to destroy each other's lives. The Laundry Boys were about to change the world, but first they had to survive a world war and a rivalry that was about to turn very, very dark. The Nazi Olympics. So, the Laundry Boys aren't just making shoes in a shed anymore. Business is actually booming. Rudy, the ultimate hype man, has been pitching these shoes to every sports club in Germany. They've moved into a real factory, hired actual employees, and started making football boots just as the sport is exploding across the country. Everything looks like a classic success story, until things get dark, fast. In 1933, Adolf Hitler rises to power. Now this is where the story gets controversial. The Nazi regime starts obsessing over physical fitness. They wanted the German people strong, athletic, and most importantly, ready for war. This created a massive, unprecedented demand for sports shoes, and the Dassler brothers were perfectly positioned to cash in. Both Adi and Rudy officially joined the Nazi Party. Some historians say they did it just to keep their business alive, but there's evidence they were actually true believers. Rudy was vocal about his support, and while Adi was quieter, he was heavily involved in the Hitler Youth. Whether they loved the ideology or just the money, their business reached a whole new level thanks to the regime. Then came 1936, the Berlin Olympics. This wasn't just a sports event, it was the first ever televised Olympics and a massive propaganda tool for Hitler to show off Aryan superiority. For the Dasslers, it was the greatest marketing opportunity in human history. They wanted the best athletes in the world wearing their spikes, and they had their eyes on one man in particular, Jesse Owens. Now, pause for a second. Think about how insane this move was. Sponsoring Jesse Owens, an African-American athlete, was a massive risk. Hitler literally wanted the games to prove that white Germans were the master race. If a black athlete won while wearing Dassler shoes, it would be a direct slap in the face to the Führer. Adi didn't care. He drove to the Olympic Village, found Jesse Owens, and basically said, "Hey, try these." He showed him a pair of handmade, personalized spikes. Owens loved them. Back then, there were no multi-million-dollar Nike contracts. Owens was just hyped to get free, high-quality gear. He put on the Dassler spikes and proceeded to absolutely dominate, winning 4 gold medals. Hitler was furious. His entire propaganda machine had been dismantled by a man from Alabama wearing shoes made by 2 German Nazi Party members. But for the Dassler brothers, it was the ultimate win. Suddenly, everyone on the planet wanted the shoes that made Jesse Owens the fastest man alive. On the surface, the brothers were on top of the world. Orders were pouring in from every corner of the globe. But behind closed doors, the pressure was causing cracks. The brothers started arguing about everything. Rudy felt he was the reason they were rich because he was the one selling the vision. Adi felt the business was nothing without his genius designs. They were both becoming incredibly wealthy, but they were also becoming incredibly paranoid of each other. They didn't know it yet. But the fame from the Olympics was the last time they would ever truly be on the same team. World War II was about to start, and the rivalry that began in a laundry shed was about to turn into a literal battle for survival. The bomb shelter betrayal. We're moving from the glitz of the Olympics straight into the heart of World War II. And this is where a family business turns into a psychological thriller. By 1939, the Nazi regime isn't just buying shoes anymore. They're demanding total war. The Dassler factory, which used to smell like leather and glue, was suddenly filled with the scent of grease and gunpowder. The government seized the facility and forced the brothers to stop making athletic spikes and start producing the Panzerschreck, basically a German bazooka used to take out Allied tanks. Imagine working every day in a factory that's making weapons while Allied planes are literally circling overhead. The stress was unreal. But the real explosion wasn't happening on the battlefield. It was happening inside the family. Adi and Rudy were now forced to live together in the same house with their wives. And let me tell you, their wives hated each other. It was a domestic nightmare. Adi's wife, Kathy, wanted more say in the business, and Rudy's wife, Friedel, wasn't having it. The brothers were already paranoid, and their wives were essentially whispering in their ears every night, fueling the fire. Then came the night of the big bombing. It's 1943. The sirens are screaming, and the sky is lit up by explosions. Adi and Kathy scramble into the local reinforced bomb shelter. Rudy and his family are already in there, huddled in the dark. As Adi climbs down the stairs, he looks at his family and yells, "The dirty bastards are back again." Silence. Adi later claimed he was talking about the Allied bombers. But Rudy? Rudy was convinced deep in his soul that Adi was looking directly at him and his family. He thought his own brother had just called him a dirty bastard in front of everyone. In Rudy's mind, the mask had slipped. The war wasn't just outside anymore, it was inside that bunker. Towards the end of the war, things got even weirder. Rudy was drafted to the front lines, but he was so paranoid that Adi was trying to steal the company while he was gone that he actually deserted his post to come back and watch the factory. He got caught by the Gestapo for desertion and sent to a concentration camp. Luckily for him, the truck transporting him was intercepted by Allied forces. But then, things went from bad to worse. The Americans arrested Rudy, suspecting him of being a high-ranking member of the SS. While Rudy was sitting in a prisoner of war camp, he was interrogated by American intelligence. They had a file on him. They knew things they shouldn't have known. Rudy became convinced that Adi had personally snitched on him to the Americans. just to get him out of the picture, so Addy could run the shoe business alone, while Rudy was locked up. Addy was also being investigated by the denazification committees. Addy was clever, though. He pointed to the fact that he had helped Jesse Owens, a black athlete, win gold, which proved he wasn't a true Nazi. He also got local townspeople to testify that he had helped them during the war. Addy walked away with his reputation relatively intact. Rudy, on the other hand, spent a year behind bars, stewing in rage. Every day he sat in that cell. He played back the bastard's comment in the bomb shelter. He played back the tip-offs. He convinced himself that his brother wasn't just a rival, he was an enemy who wanted him dead. When Rudy was finally released in 1946, he didn't go back to Addy with a hug. He walked into the factory, and the tension was so thick you could cut it with a leather knife. They tried to make it work for a few months, but it was over. The trust was dead. In 1948, the brothers gathered the employees in the factory courtyard. They told them, "We are splitting, pick a side." It was like a playground pick of the teams, but with million-dollar stakes. The salesmen and the extroverts mostly went with Rudy. The craftsmen and the designers stayed with Addy. Rudy packed his bags, moved across the river, and started a company he originally called Ruda, later changed to Puma. Addy stayed in the original factory and combined his nickname Addy with the start of his last name Das to create Adidas. The Dassler brothers were dead. The greatest brand war in history had just begun. The town of Bent Necks. If you think your family drama is bad, imagine it being so intense that it literally splits your hometown into two warring factions for 60 years. That is exactly what happened in 1948. When Addy and Rudy decided to split the business, they didn't just move to different offices, they carved a line right through the heart of Herzegovina. This is the point in the story where things go from a business rivalry to a full-blown social experiment. The split was absolute. Rudy took his half of the equipment and moved his team to the other side of the Arix River. He set up shop in a makeshift factory and named his new company Puma, after the sleek, fast Predator. Meanwhile, Addy stayed in the original factory, officially registering Adidas. But here's the crazy part. The employees had to choose. It was like a corporate divorce where the kids are forced to pick which parent they want to live with. Most of the sales staff who loved Rudy's charismatic energy followed him across the river. The technical guys and the shoemakers, who worshipped Addy's craftsmanship, stayed put. The river became the Berlin Wall of sportswear. On one side, everyone worked for Adidas, on the other, everyone worked for Puma. And I mean everyone. If you lived in Herzegovina, your entire identity was tied to one of these two brands. It sounds like a joke, but it was deadly serious. There were bakeries only for one group and not the other. There were pubs where a Puma worker couldn't get a beer without starting a fight. If you were a Puma employee, you didn't date anyone at Adidas. If your kids played together, you'd probably get a talking to from your boss. This is where the town got its legendary nickname, the town of Bent Necks. When two people met on the street, they wouldn't look at each other's faces or say hello. They would immediately look down at each other's shoes. Your footwear determined whether you were a friend, an enemy, or a ghost. Brothers weren't just competing for sales. They were competing for the soul of the town. They were obsessed with outdoing each other. If Addy bought a new delivery truck, Rudy bought two. If Puma sponsored a local festival, Adidas would build a bigger stage. The paranoia from the war only got worse. Both brothers allegedly hired spies to hang out in the other side's pubs, trying to overhear secrets about new shoe designs or upcoming athlete endorsements. They were constantly looking for traitors. If an Adidas employee was caught talking to a Puma employee for too long, they could be fired on the spot. While the town was busy fighting itself, the brothers were also locked in a high-stakes race to conquer the world. This was the era where branding as we know it was born. Addy knew he needed a logo that would stand out on a black and white TV screen. He experimented with different designs and eventually landed on the 3 stripes. Why 3? Because it looked the best on the side of a leather shoe and provided extra structural support. It was simple, iconic, and unmistakable. Rudy, the salesman, went for something more aggressive. He wanted a logo that screamed speed and power. He eventually landed on the jumping cat, the Puma. He wanted his athletes to feel like predators on the track. The rivalry started to spill out of Germany and onto the global stage. Every track meet, every football match, and every Olympic trial became a proxy war between Addy and Rudy. They weren't just selling shoes, they were trying to prove who was the better brother. The stakes were about to get even higher. The 1950s were coming, and with them the first ever televised World Cup. One brother was about to become a national hero, while the other would be left in the dust, fueling a resentment that would last until their very last breath. The brothers had built their walls. Now, they were ready to burn the bridges. The miracle of Bern and the ultimate sabotage. The world's biggest stage. The FIFA World Cup. This is where a simple disagreement over a contract changed the course of sports history forever, and turned one brother into a legend while leaving the other fuming in the shadows. It's 1954. West Germany has made it to the World Cup final in Switzerland. They're the underdogs, facing the mighty Magyars of Hungary, a team that hadn't lost a match in 4 years. This was more than just a game for Germany. It was a chance to reclaim national pride after the devastation of World War II. But before the game even started, a different battle was happening behind the scenes. Sepp Herberger, the legendary coach of the German team, first went to Rudi Dassler at Puma. He wanted a shoe deal, but Rudi, being the stubborn salesman he was, got into a heated argument with Herberger over money and influence. Rudi essentially told the national coach to take a hike. He thought he was being a tough negotiator. In reality, he just handed his brother the keys to the kingdom. Adi Dassler saw the opening and pounced. He didn't just offer the team shoes, he offered them a secret weapon. You see, back then, football boots had fixed leather studs. If the pitch was muddy, you just slipped. If it was hard, you were stuck with long studs. Adi, the tinkerer, had developed something revolutionary, interchangeable screw-in studs. He could swap the cleats on a shoe depending on the weather. On the day of the final, it started to pour rain. It was dubbed Fritz Walter weather after the German captain who loved the rain. While the Hungarian players were sliding all over the pitch like they were on ice, Adi was on the sidelines, literally kneeling in the mud, screwing longer studs into the German players' boots. Germany came back from 2-0 down to win 3-2. It became known as the Miracle of Bern. When the team lifted the trophy, the world didn't just see German heroes. They saw the 3 stripes of Adidas. Adi became a national icon. Rudi was left watching from across the river, knowing he could have had it all if he'd just kept his cool. The Miracle of Bern sent the rivalry into overdrive. The brothers weren't just competing for athletes anymore. They were allegedly trying to destroy each other's operations. Rumors began to swirl that the brothers were using their political and business connections to sabotage shipments. During the 1956 Melbourne Olympics, Puma claimed that Adidas had used its influence with German customs officials to accidentally delay crates of Puma shoes, leaving Puma's athletes without their proper gear right before their events. In response, Rudi started poaching Adidas athletes in the middle of the night. He would literally show up at hotel rooms with suitcases full of cash, trying to get them to switch brands before they stepped onto the track. It was the Wild West of sports marketing. By the 1960s, the brothers were getting older, but the hate was being passed down like a family heirloom. Adi's son Horst and Rudi's son Armin were now entering the business. If the fathers were fighters, the sons were tactical generals. Horst Dassler was a master of sports politics. He began befriending the heads of the Olympics and FIFA, essentially buying the rights to be the official brand of every major tournament. He realized that if you own the tournament, you own the players. Rudi and Armin felt backed into a corner. They realized they couldn't outspend Adidas on every athlete, so they decided to aim for the biggest target in the world. They were going after the king. They were going after Pelé. But the Pelé Pact was about to become the most famous betrayal in the history of the shoe wars. The brothers had agreed for the sake of their bank accounts that neither would sign Pelé because he was too expensive. It was a ceasefire. But as history has shown, a Dassler peace treaty is usually just a setup for a knife in the back. The 1970 World Cup was approaching, and the brothers were about to break the one rule they both agreed on. The legacy of hate. The finale of the Dassler saga isn't just about shoes. It's about the total collapse of a family and the birth of modern sports marketing. By 1970, the war between Adidas and Puma had reached a Cold War status. Both sides were spending so much money trying to outbid each other for athletes that they were actually hurting their own profits. To prevent financial suicide, Adi's son, Horst, and Rudi's son, Armin, did something unthinkable. They sat down and signed a peace treaty. It was called the Pelé Pact. Pelé was the Michael Jordan of his time, the greatest footballer on the planet. The pact was simple. Neither Adidas nor Puma would sign Pelé. If they got into a bidding war over him, the price would go so high it would bankrupt whoever won. It was a gentleman's agreement. But in the Dassler family, gentleman was a foreign word. During the 1970 World Cup in Mexico, a Puma rep approached Pelé with a suitcase. They offered him $125,000 a fortune at the time, plus a cut of every shoe sold. Pelé took the deal. But Rudy and Armin didn't just want him in the shoes. They wanted to humiliate Adidas on a global scale. Just before the opening whistle of the quarter-final match, Pelé walked to the center circle and asked the referee for a moment to tie his laces. The cameras zoomed in. For 30 seconds, the entire world watched a close-up of Pelé's hands tightening the laces on a pair of Puma boots. It was the most successful marketing stunt in history, and it sent the Adidas camp into a literal frenzy. The Pelé pact was dead, and the war was back on, meaner than ever. While their sons were playing high-stakes games with Pelé and FIFA, the original brothers Adi and Rudy were aging. They were both millionaires living in the same tiny town. But they hadn't spoken a single word to each other in nearly 30 years. Even as they grew frail, the hate didn't fade. Rudy fell ill first in 1974. As he lay on his deathbed, a priest reportedly reached out to Adi, asking him to come to the other side of the river one last time so the brothers could reconcile before the end. Adi refused. He sent a message saying he forgave Rudy, but he wouldn't step foot in his house. Rudy died alone, still the dirty bastard in his brother's eyes. 4 years later, Adi passed away too. You'd think the story ends there, but the brothers had one final move. They are buried in the same small cemetery in Herzogenaurach. But even in death, they couldn't be near each other. Their graves are placed at opposite ends of the graveyard, as far apart as possible, so they don't have to spend eternity together. By the 1980s and 90s, the family eventually lost control of the companies. Adidas and Puma are now massive, multi-billion-dollar corporations run by boards of directors and CEOs who don't share the Dassler name. In 2009, the companies finally tried to bury the hatchet. They held a peace match, a friendly football game between Adidas and Puma employees. It was the first time in 60 years that the two sides had shaken hands. But if you go to Herzogenaurach today, the town of bent necks still exists in spirit. The river still divides the town. Adidas is still on one side, Puma is on the other. Old-timers will still tell you stories of the brothers who turned a laundry shed into a battlefield. The Dasslers are gone, but every time you put on a pair of sneakers with 3 stripes or a jumping cat, you're wearing the remnants of the most toxic, creative and successful sibling rivalry in human history. The Laundry Boys didn't just make shoes. They built empires out of pure, unadulterated spite. What if the most chaotic year in history was actually a perfectly timed execution? In 2025, the hills of LA burned to incinerate the Diddy evidence. The Super Bowl played out like a billion-dollar script, and the clones in Washington prepared for the ultimate JFK disclosure. From the tactical silencing of Charlie Kirk to the ritual passing of icons like Ozzy, the old world is being systematically liquidated. They aren't just hiding the truth in tunnels anymore. They're using the 6G grid to scrub it from your very consciousness. Reality was rewritten in 2025, and today we're exposing the blueprint. In 2025, Los Angeles became the epicenter of a new breed of conspiracy, one where natural disasters and Hollywood's darkest legal scandals collided. As the city's hillsides turned to ash, a digital firestorm erupted on social media, linking the destruction to the impending trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Theory 1. The LA Fire Evidence Purge. The massive wildfires of January 2025 were officially attributed to dry conditions and hurricane-force winds. However, for a vocal segment of the internet, the timing was far too convenient. With Diddy's trial set for May, rumors began to swirl that the fires were tactical burns, intentional ignitions designed to incinerate physical evidence and underground server rooms. The claim gained traction because Diddy's Holmby Hills mansion reportedly remained untouched while neighboring properties suffered catastrophic damage. High-profile figures, including former government officials, publicly questioned the patterns of the fire, suggesting that the blaze targeted specific estates linked to the unverified Diddy list, a supposed roster of celebrities involved in his controversial freak-offs. Taking the evidence, Purge a step further is the ghost smart city theory. This investigation suggests that the fires were used to physically sever old, analog surveillance grids that the public assumed were long dead. Theorists believe that certain wealthy enclaves in LA have been operating as ghost grids for decades, running on a private hardwired fiber optic system that bypassed modern internet logs. By burning these areas, the theory posits, the establishment wasn't just destroying paper files, they were melting the physical infrastructure of a legacy surveillance state before federal investigators could subpoena the hardware. This intersects with the Smart LA 2028 initiative, where skeptics argue that the scorched earth is being cleared not for safety, but to install a new AI-integrated surveillance grid that will eliminate the dark zones used by the old guard. Theory 2. The Celebrity Tunnel Network. While the fires raged above, a second theory was resurrected below the streets. Los Angeles is a city built on top of secrets, literally, from Prohibition-era tunnels beneath the Biltmore Hotel to the abandoned 1920s pedestrian subways. The city's subterranean history is well documented, but in 2025, the narrative shifted from historical curiosity to modern sinister utility. The modern theory was supercharged by Jeffree Star, who confirmed on a popular podcast that elite underground tunnels are a reality for the Hollywood A-list. Star's claims described a world where celebrities move through the Achterbahn, a private transit system that allows stars to bypass the 405 and move between gated estates undetected by the paparazzi or law enforcement. While skeptics point to LA's high water table and seismic instability as proof against such a network, the recent accidental discovery of a secret tunnel connecting the Chateau Marmont to the former Players Club building gave the theory a sudden, jarring injection of credibility. The most viral and disturbing offshoot of the tunnel theory is the Diddy-MJ connection. Following the federal raids on Diddy's properties, social media sleuths began mapping the proximity of his Holmby Hills residence to Michael Jackson's former Neverland legacy and the Playboy Mansion. The claim suggests that secret high-tech passageways link these historical Hollywood estates, creating a subterranean playground for engineered proximity. According to this theory, these tunnels were used for more than just avoiding traffic. They were allegedly used to move people, including minors, between properties without ever being seen on street-level security cameras. The conspiracy reached a fever pitch in late 2025, when theorists suggested that the January fires were specifically aimed at collapsing these illegal passages. If the fire couldn't burn the evidence, the argument went, the heat and structural damage would cave in the tunnels, burying the secrets of the Diddy-MJ era forever under the weight of the Hollywood Hills. As the smoke cleared from the January fires, the cultural landscape of 2025 shifted toward the most watched and most scrutinized event of the year, the Super Bowl. While February is traditionally a month of athletic celebration, in 2025 it became the stage for a massive investigation into the concept of engineered reality. If the first month of the year was about burning the past, the second month was about the high-tech scripting of the future. Theory 3. The Scripted Spring and the NFL Color Code. The theory that professional sports are scripted transitioned from a fringe meme to a mainstream obsession in February 2025. This wasn't just about referees making bad calls. It was about the NFL Color Code. For years, theorists have pointed out an eerie coincidence. The colors used in the official Super Bowl logo often match the primary colors of the two teams that eventually make it to the championship. In 2025, when the logo featured a specific sunset gradient of deep purple and neon gold, and the final matchup mirrored those exact shades, the internet exploded. Critics argued that in an era of multi-billion-dollar gambling partnerships, the NFL cannot afford organic outcomes. The claim is that the league uses advanced data modeling and perhaps even directive scripts to ensure the most profitable matchups. The 2025 season was the culmination of what theorists call the Swift-Kelsey psyop. The theory posits that the relationship between the pop titan and the star tight end was never a romance, but a high-level marketing operation designed to merge two of the most powerful demographics in America, NFL fans and Swifties. According to the 2025 deep dives, the NFL saw a 400% increase in merchandise sales and a massive spike in viewership among young women during the 2024 season. By the time the 2025 Super Bowl arrived, the narrative was so perfect, the fairy tale ending, that skeptics argued the outcome was a mathematical necessity for the league's stock price. The script wasn't written for the players, theorists argue, but for the algorithms that drive engagement. The Super Bowl wasn't a game. It was a season finale of a scripted drama where the trophy was a secondary prize to the advertising revenue. Theory 4. The Bieber arranged marriage and the stalker narrative. While the sports world was debating the legitimacy of the Super Bowl, the pop culture sphere was descending into a darker rabbit hole involving Justin and Hailey Bieber. In April 2025, a series of viral digital footprint investigations reignited the theory that their marriage was the result of a decade-long stalker campaign and a corporate-enforced contract. The claim centers on the narrative that Hailey Bieber, formerly Baldwin, utilized her family's industry connections to maintain engineered proximity to Justin for years before their 2018 marriage. Social media sleuths in 2025 began circulating lost footage from 2014 to 2016, showing Hailey consistently appearing in the background of Justin's fan photos, church services, and private parties, often just feet away, yet seemingly unnoticed. The theory grew more complex when fans began analyzing the mirroring behavior between Hailey and Justin's most famous ex, Selena Gomez. In early 2025, An AI-driven comparison of their social media posts showed a 92% correlation in timing, aesthetic, and even caption phrasing. The stalker narrative suggests that Hailey wasn't just a fan. She was allegedly coached by PR firms to become the ideal version of Justin's preference to secure a marriage contract. But why a contract? The 2025 theory suggests that Justin's personal struggles and legal liabilities made him uninsurable for major world tours. The Baldwin family, deeply entrenched in Hollywood's inner circle, supposedly offered a stabilizing marriage to rehabilitate his image. In exchange, the theory claims the Bieber brand provided the Baldwin name with a level of global relevance it hadn't seen in decades. The conspiracy reached its peak in April when a disgruntled former assistant allegedly leaked a relationship maintenance schedule. This document supposedly outlined the public appearances per month required by the couple to fulfill their branding obligations. While the leak was widely dismissed as a hoax, it fueled the fire of those who believe the Bieber marriage is a masterclass in corporate shipping. Theorists argue that Justin's visible discomfort in 2025 public appearances isn't just burnout, but the result of living within a scripted marriage that has reached its expiration date. This connects back to the broader theme of 2025. Nothing we see, be it on the football field or in the candid paparazzi shots of Hollywood, is happening by chance. It is all being managed, measured, and marketed. By the summer of 2025, the fires in Los Angeles and the scripted pageantry of the Super Bowl had given way to a season of profound political destabilization. The American public, already primed by months of high-level conspiracies, found itself caught between the sudden unveiling of historical ghosts and a radical questioning of the living. Theory 5. The JFK Full Disclosure and the Secret Service Shadow. In March 2025, following the signing of Executive Order 14116, President Donald Trump ordered the National Archives to release over 80,000 pages of unredacted documents related to the 1963 assassination of John F. Kennedy. While mainstream analysts focused on Lee Harvey Oswald's ties to the KGB, a more seismic theory emerged from the deep dive into the lost FBI files discovered in early 2025. The theory suggests that the release was not a simple act of transparency, but a strategic warning shot directed at the modern intelligence community. The unredacted Schlesinger memo, along with 2,400 newly digitized records, revealed deeper tension between Kennedy and the CIA than previously confirmed. Social media investigators quickly pivoted from 1963 to 2025, claiming that these files contained encrypted signatures, operational protocols that matched modern-day Secret Service anomalies. The claim is that the deep state infrastructure that targeted JFK was never dismantled. It simply evolved, and the 2025 release was a public signal that the current administration now held the receipts for 60 years of shadow governance. The release was heavily influenced by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., then a key figure in the Trump administration. Theorists argue that the disclosure was the fulfillment of a blood pact between the two families. The theory posits that unredacted files concerning the RFK and Martin Luther King Jr. assassinations, scheduled for release later that summer, were intended to prove that the US government had been operating under a continuity of government protocol since the 1960s, rendering every president since JFK a figurehead. Theory 6. The Joe Biden clone and the 2020 execution claim. As the JFK files dominated the headlines, a far more surreal theory took hold of the digital underground. In June 2025, President Trump shared a post on Truth Social that shocked the political establishment. The post, originating from a pro-MAGA account, claimed that there was no real Joe Biden, that the former president had been executed in 2020 and replaced by a series of clones, doubles, and robotic engineered entities. While the mainstream media dismissed this as a baseless conspiracy, the theory gained explosive momentum following Biden's diagnosis with an aggressive form of stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. Skeptics argued that the timing of the diagnosis was a phased exit for a biological double that was reaching its expiration date. The 2025 iteration of the Biden clone theory relied on what believers called biological forensic analysis, using high-resolution imagery from the 2024 debates compared to footage from the 1990s. Theorists pointed to permanent changes in earlobe attachment, the height of the hyoid bone, and the allegedly soulless appearance of his eyes. The theory reached a fever pitch with the AutoPen scandal. In April 2025, claims surfaced that Biden had not physically signed several key pieces of legislation during his term, instead using an automated signature machine to authorize wars and executive orders, while he was allegedly incapacitated or undergoing maintenance. Believers argue that the vicious person Trump described in his June 2025 press conferences was not the Joe Biden the public knew, but a mindless entity controlled by a committee of unelected handlers. The final twist in the 2025 summer saga was the claim that Biden's bone cancer was not a natural illness, but a side effect of rapid growth cloning. Theorists suggested that the vicious treatment of political opponents mentioned by Trump was actually a desperate attempt by the cloners to maintain control as their primary asset began to physically degrade. According to this theory, the entire 2021-2025 presidency was a high-tech weekend at Bernie's operation, designed to hold the line until the 2025 transition. By July, the two theories merged. The JFK files proved the existence of the shadow government, and the Biden clone was the ultimate proof of its power. By late 2025, the fever dream of the LA evidence purge and the JFK disclosures converged into a singular harrowing focal point, the trial of Sean Diddy Combs and its collateral damage on the survivors of the Hollywood machine. As the year closed, the public was no longer just consuming theories, they were witnessing the visible disintegration of the elite shield that had protected the industry's darkest secrets for decades. Theory 7. The Diddy-Bieber Silence Protocol. In May 2025, as Diddy's sex trafficking trial commenced in New York, the digital world turned its collective gaze toward Justin Bieber. The theory, fueled by resurfaced clips of a 15-year-old Bieber spending 48 hours with Diddy, suggested that Bieber was the crown jewel of a silence protocol, a victim-turned-asset, whose psychological stability was a direct barometer for the industry's legal safety. When Bieber's representatives issued a blunt statement in May 2025 asserting he was not a victim, theorists didn't see a denial, they saw a scripted containment. The claim is that the massive wildfires in January were just the opening act for a digital scorched earth campaign. Skeptics pointed to Bieber's alarming Instagram posts throughout the summer of 2025, cryptic messages about sneaky ones and transactional love as proof that he was fighting a gag order enforced by the same ghost smart city infrastructure that protected Diddy's estates. The Bieber breakdown was rebranded by theorists as a slow-motion leak, where the singer's deteriorating physical appearance was the only way he could communicate the truth without violating a multi-million-dollar non-disclosure agreement. A central pillar of the 2025 year-end theories was the missing freak-off hard drives. While federal agents seized over 1,000 bottles of baby oil, theorists insisted the real evidence, the high-definition footage of engineered proximity involving A-list stars and politicians, was housed in the very underground server rooms allegedly targeted during the LA fires. The theory posits that the Diddy trial was a controlled burn, a way to punish one man while ensuring the Diddy list remained a ghost in the machine, never to be fully unredacted. Theory 8. The Epstein-Trump hoax pivot. As the Diddy trial exposed the rot in the music industry, the political world was rocked by the Epstein Files Transparency Act of November 2025. During his 2024 campaign, Donald Trump had promised a full release of the Jeffrey Epstein client list. However, by July 2025, the narrative took a sharp conspiratorial turn that left even his most ardent supporters in a state of MAGA meltdown. The theory, which dominated the late 2025 political landscape, suggests that Trump's sudden pivot, calling the Epstein files a Democratic hoax and a radical left-inspired scam, was a response to a blackmail checkmate. Following a private briefing with the Attorney General in May, where Trump was reportedly informed his name appeared in the files, the administration's tone shifted from full disclosure to containment. The Bondi redactions became the most searched term of December 2025. Theorists claimed that the 33,000 pages released by the House Oversight Committee were laundered to protect a new alliance between the Trump administration and the remaining technocratic elite. The claim is that the Epstein files were used as a currency for a grand bargain. Trump would suppress the most damaging names in exchange for the total cooperation of the Silicon Valley shadow cabinet. The conspiracy reached a surreal peak when social media sleuths discovered a happy birthday letter allegedly written by Trump to Epstein, featuring a sketch of a naked woman. While the White House dismissed it as a forgery, theorists used AI forensic ink analysis to argue it was authentic. For the public, this was the final proof that the justice system was actually a protection system. Whether it was the tunnels under LA, the freak-off tapes, or the Epstein ledgers, 2025 proved that the truth wasn't being hidden, it was being traded. By the end of 2025, the cultural landscape had been permanently scarred by a series of ritualistic transitions that many believed were far from natural. The theme of the year, the systematic replacement of the old guard, moved from the political and legal spheres into the very soul of American entertainment and conservative media. Theory 9. The Prince of Darkness ritual passing. In July 2025, the world mourned the death of heavy metal icon Ozzy Osbourne, who passed away just 17 days after a final Back to the Beginning concert in his hometown of Birmingham. While the official cause was complications from Parkinson's disease, The occult-leaning corners of the internet focused on a specific moment during his final months, the anointing of Youngblood. The theory posits that Ozzy's final appearance wasn't a retirement but a high-level occult ritual to pass the torch to a new generation of industry-approved rebels. Skeptics pointed to the 2025 MTV MAs, where Youngblood performed a tribute to Ozzy while wearing a cross necklace gifted to him by the Prince of Darkness himself. According to the ritual passing theory, Youngblood was selected not for his musical prowess, but as a vessel for the Osbourne brand identity to continue within a more controllable modern framework. The claim is that Ozzy's death was timed to coincide with the lunar cycle, ensuring that the heavy metal archetype remained under the management of the same legacy labels that have governed the genre since 1968. Theory 10. The Charlie Kirk assassination and the Patsy narrative. If the music world was reeling from a ritual transition, the political world was shattered by the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk on September 10, 2025. Kirk was shot while speaking at Utah Valley University, an event that sent shockwaves through the MAGA movement just as the 2024-2025 transition period was solidifying. The official narrative identified 22-year-old Tyler Robinson as the lone gunman, a man described by FBI Director Kash Patel as being radicalized in the dark corners of the internet. However, a secondary theory, championed by Candace Owens, emerged almost immediately. Owens publicly rejected the lone wolf story, labeling Robinson a patsy, and suggesting that Kirk had been targeted by the very intelligence infrastructure he had spent years criticizing. The Kirk conspiracy reached a fever pitch when Owens began investigating a mysterious Egyptian plane she believed was linked to the assassination. She claimed that Kirk had sent alarming texts to TPUSA staff in the days leading up to his death, expressing fear of his own security detail, led by former police officer Brian Harpole. The theory suggests a security stand-down occurred at Utah Valley University. Social media sleuths pointed to newly surfaced video of Harpole in the crowd moments before the shooting, standing with his arms folded and one hand allegedly hidden. Theories swirled that the venue choice was forced upon Kirk by outside handlers, and that the lone gunman was actually a distraction for a professional sniper positioned at a high vantage point. This theory frames Kirk's death not as a random act of violence, but as a pruning of the conservative movement to make way for a more aligned leadership structure under the 2026 political horizon. The most divisive element of the 2025 fallout was the bitter public feud between Candace Owens and Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. While Erica urged for peace and an end to paranoid speculations, Owens doubled down, hosting whistleblowers who claimed to have seen Erica at a military base the day before the killing. The grand synthesis of 2025 suggests that both the passing of Ozzy and the killing of Kirk were two sides of the same coin, the liquidation of the influentials. According to this theory, the elite protection system discussed in the Diddy and Epstein cases had decided that both the rock and roll rebellion of the 20th century and the populist conservative surge of the 21st had served their purposes. By the winter of 2025, the old avatars were being cleared out, one by natural ritual, the other by tactical elimination to prepare the public for the Neuralink era, where dissent would no longer be vocalized but merely debugged from the collective consciousness. As the final sun sets on 2025, the investigation moves from the political and celebrity-driven scandals of the year into the more abstract, metaphysical boundaries of human control. The finale of Stranger Things on January 1, 2026, didn't just close a fictional narrative, it acted as a catalyst for a massive resurgence in theories regarding secret government experimentation and the suppression of human evolution. Theory 11. The Montauk Project and the Psychic Chair. The release of Stranger Things Season 5 in late 2025 reignited a dormant obsession with the Montauk Project, the alleged secret government operation at Camp Hero, Long Island. In the series finale, Jim Hopper's mention of moving to Montauk was seen by theorists not as a romantic gesture, but as a full-circle disclosure. The claim centers on the Montauk Chair, a sophisticated device allegedly used in the 1970s and 80s to amplify the psychic abilities of kidnapped children, known as the Montauk Boys. According to the 2025 deep dives, the chair was an interface between human consciousness and a massive SAGE radar tower, capable of manifesting objects out of thin air or opening time tunnels. Social media sleuths in late 2025 pointed to the abandoned, rusting radar dish still standing at Camp Hero as a monument to the suppressed. They argue that the Duffer Brothers originally titled the show Montauk because they were following a whistleblower script intended to desensitize the public to the reality of interdimensional research. The theory suggests that the Upside Down is a literal representation of hyperspace accessed by the military during the 1983 interlock with the Philadelphia experiment, a claim popularized by Preston Nichols, who alleged he recovered repressed memories of working on the project. Theory 12. The 6G, Sixth Sense Suppression. While the Montauk theories look back at the 20th century, the final major conspiracy of 2025 looks forward to the technological horizon of 2026. This theory concerns magnetoreception, the biological ability to sense the Earth's magnetic field. While birds, sea turtles, and even certain bacteria use this sixth sense for navigation, humans are officially considered magnetically blind. Theorists in 2025, however, began citing a 2019 Caltech study which proved that human brainwaves, specifically alpha rhythms, respond to changes in magnetic fields. The claim is that humans possess a built-in compass via cryptochromes in our retinas and magnetite crystals in our brains, but that this sense is being intentionally jammed by the global rollout of 6G wireless frequencies. The theory suggests that the 6G infrastructure expected to reach full saturation in 2026 operates at sub-terahertz frequencies that specifically interfere with the radical pair mechanism in human cells. By dulling our magnetoreception, the establishment supposedly prevents humans from feeling the natural frequency of the Earth, making us more susceptible to the artificial environments of ghost smart cities and the impending Neuralink era. The suppression narrative argues that pop culture, like Stranger Things, serves as predictive programming, making psychic and magnetic abilities seem like the stuff of 1980s sci-fi, so that the public ignores the actual biological degradation happening in real time. The goal, according to December 2025's most viral threads, is to replace our natural sixth sense with a digital one, a subscription-based neural interface that allows the elite to map human consciousness as easily as they mapped the LA tunnels. Investigating 2025's biggest conspiracy theories leads to a singular chilling conclusion. The year was a systematic clearing of the board. From the physical burning of Diddy's evidence in January, to the ritualistic passing of icons like Ozzy, and finally to the digital and biological jamming of the public mind, 2025 was the year the old world was liquidated. As we step into 2026, the question is no longer what are they hiding, but what have they changed in us? The tunnels are caving in, the files are redacted, and our internal compass is spinning. In the new year, the conspiracy is no longer something you watch on a screen, it's something you feel in your mind. On September 10, 2001, the Pentagon admitted it couldn't track $2.3 trillion. The next morning, the office investigating that missing money was turned to rubble. Since then, the black budget hasn't just grown, it has funded a hidden empire. While we pay for 20th century energy, they are wielding physics we were told was impossible. And while we look at the stars, they are already there, operating from bases we aren't allowed to see. From reports of anti-gravity fleets in our orbit to subterranean cities carved by nuclear fire. We aren't just looking at a government secret, we're looking at a breakaway civilization. Today we follow the paper trail to find where the money was buried and the shadow world it was used to create. The 9/10 bombshell. It is September 10, 2001. A Tuesday morning in Washington, D.C. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld walks to the podium at the Pentagon to deliver a speech that under any other circumstances would have sparked a second American Revolution. He looks into the cameras and admits that the Department of Defense, the most powerful organization on Earth, cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. To put that in perspective, if you spent $1 every second, it would take you 32,000 years to reach $1 trillion. Rumsfeld called the Pentagon's own bureaucracy an adversary that threatens the sovereignty of the United States. But then, the sun rose on September 11. By 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 struck the Pentagon. But here is where the glitch in the matrix begins. The plane didn't hit the high-level command offices or the weapons storage. It struck the West Wedge, specifically the Resource Services Washington office. This was the exact location where the civilian accountants, budget analysts, and data specialists were stationed. The very people tasked with finding out where those missing trillions had gone. In a single afternoon, the paper trails were incinerated, the analysts were killed, and the investigation was buried under the rubble of a global war. For decades, the official story of missing money has been bad accounting. But to the investigators of the shadow world, this was no error. This was the birth of the modern black budget. When we talk about missing money, we aren't talking about a lost wallet. We are talking about a deliberate legal architecture designed to move trillions of taxpayer dollars into unacknowledged special access programs, or USAPs. In the world of government secrets, there is a hierarchy. You have confidential, secret, and top secret, but those are just the lobby of the building. To get to the real ghost programs, you need access to a SAP, An acknowledged SAP is a program the government admits exists, like the B-2 stealth bomber. We know the plane exists, even if we don't know how the radar-absorbent paint is made. But a USEP, that is a different beast entirely. If a member of Congress, the people who supposedly hold the purse strings, asks about a USEP, the official answer is, this program does not exist. Even if that congressman is on the Intelligence Committee. Even if they have proof, the program is a ghost. It has no name, no location, and no public record. These programs are the primary reason the Pentagon has never passed an audit. In 2024, 2025, and now in 2026, the story remains the same. Trillions of dollars in assets are unaccountable. But in the world of high finance, money doesn't just vanish, it is allocated. Consider the waived USAP. This is a secret so potent that the Secretary of Defense can legally waive the requirement to notify Congress about it. In these cases, the program is often handed over to private aerospace corporations. By moving the project into the private sector, the government creates a legal firewall. You can't file a Freedom of Information Act request against Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman for their corporate secrets. The $2.3 trillion Rumsfeld mentioned wasn't lost. It was the seed money for a shadow economy that has been operating in the dark for 70 years. While you struggle with inflation and taxes, a breakaway faction of the military-industrial complex is playing with a budget that exceeds the GDP of most nations. The question isn't where is the money. The question is what did they buy with it? And as we're about to see, the answer might be sitting in a hangar in the desert, and it wasn't made by human hands. Project Immaculate Constellation. The UAP cover-up. Now that we have seen the how, the financial machinery that makes money disappear, let's study the what. For decades, the term UFO was a punchline, a way to discredit anyone who looked too closely at the sky. But by the mid-2020s, the laughter stopped. In late 2024 and throughout 2025, a series of seismic leaks from the heart of the intelligence community brought a new name into the public lexicon, Immaculate Constellation. This is not just another weather balloon story. According to whistleblowers and leaked documents circulated within the halls of Congress, Immaculate Constellation is a parent unacknowledged special access program, USAP, designed to manage the most sensitive secret in human history, the reality of non-human intelligence, NHI, and the physical craft they leave behind. The conspiracy begins with a legal loophole. If the United States military recovers a craft that doesn't use combustion, wings, or visible propulsion, they have a problem. If they keep it at a government facility like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, it is technically subject to government oversight. A brave senator or a persistent inspector general could, in theory, demand an inspection. To prevent this, the black budget architects created a shell game. Using the trillions siphoned from the shadow ledger, they outsourced the recovery and study of these assets to private aerospace giants, the big three of the military-industrial complex. By transferring off-world technology to a private laboratory, the government places it behind a wall of corporate proprietary secrecy. When a whistleblower claims that the Pentagon is hiding a saucer, the Pentagon can technically tell the truth. We don't have it. They don't. A private company does, funded by a waived USAP, that is buried so deep in the budget it appears only as a $500 million line item for advanced materials research or satellite maintenance. Immaculate Constellation is rumored to be the central nervous system for this cover-up. It isn't just about hiding old crashes from the 1940s. It's about a modern, active surveillance network. The theory suggests that the US has developed high-end sensor arrays, some of which are based on the very technology they've recovered, to track these UAPs in real time. The conspiracy alleges that we aren't just watching them, we are interacting with them. The black budget has funded the development of electronic warfare triggers, signals that can interfere with the propulsion systems of these craft. We aren't just observing the visitors, we are hunting them. Every crash is another gift to the private contractors, another opportunity to leapfrog human physics by 1,000 years. The tension reached a breaking point in the 2024-2025 hearings, when members of the House Oversight Committee demanded to know the specific locations of these legacy programs. They were met with a chilling response from the intelligence community's Inspector General. He couldn't tell them, not because he didn't know, but because they weren't cleared to hear it. Think about the absurdity of that moment. Elected officials, tasked with representing the American taxpayer, were told that they do not have the need to know how their own money is being spent. This is where the conspiracy turns into a constitutional crisis. If a group of unelected generals and corporate CEOs are managing technology that could rewrite the laws of energy and transportation, and they are doing so using black budget funds that Congress cannot track, then who is actually in charge of the country? Why would they hide it? The black budget theory suggests it isn't just about national security, it's about energy hegemony. If the Pentagon admitted we have captured craft that run on zero-point energy or anti-gravity, the global oil economy would collapse overnight. The $2.3 trillion we discussed before is nothing compared to the quadrillions of dollars controlled by the global energy market. Instead, they bleed the technology out slowly. We get fiber optics, integrated circuits and LED lights, the breadcrumbs of reverse engineering, while the prime tech stays in the dark. Immaculate Constellation is the gatekeeper, ensuring that the most transformative discoveries in history remain the exclusive property of the Shadow Empire. As we look up at the sky, we have to ask, is the secret space program just a dream? Or have we already built a fleet of our own using the technology stolen from the others? To find that answer, we have to look even higher, beyond the atmosphere. The secret space program. If the Pentagon is hiding advanced craft on Earth, as we explored in the previous chapter, the next logical question is, are they actually using them? While NASA launches its massive chemical-fueled rockets with deafening roars and millions of gallons of fuel, conspiracy theorists point to a much quieter, much more expensive alternative operating in the vacuum of space. This is the legend of Solar Warden, the alleged secret space fleet patrolling our solar system since the 1980s. The foundation of the Solar Warden theory isn't a leaked document from a general, but a series of digital breadcrumbs found by a British systems administrator named Gary McKinnon. In the early 2000s, McKinnon, motivated by a desire to find evidence of suppressed free energy and UFO technology, performed what the US government called the biggest military computer hack of all time. Navigating through unsecured NASA and Pentagon networks from his flat in London, McKinnon claimed to find a series of high-level Excel spreadsheets. One was titled Non-Terrestrial Officers. It contained names and ranks of personnel that did not appear on any official Air Force or Navy roster. Another sheet detailed fleet-to-fleet transfers between ships that didn't officially exist. McKinnon even claimed to have glimpsed a high-resolution satellite image of a cigar-shaped craft over the northern hemisphere before his connection was cut. The US government's reaction was telling. Rather than dismissing him as a crank, they spent a decade attempting to extradite him, threatening him with 70 years in prison. To the black budget investigators, this wasn't just a prosecution. It was a desperate attempt to silence a man who had accidentally peeked into the Pentagon's space ledger. If Solar Warden is the fleet, the TR-3B Black Manta is its rumored workhorse. Described by thousands of witnesses worldwide, from the Hudson Valley to the Belgian wave of the late 80s, the TR-3B is a massive, silent, triangular craft with a glowing central light. The theory suggests the TR-3B uses a magnetic field disruptor MFD, a circular plasma accelerator that allegedly neutralizes gravity by 89%. This isn't science fiction, it's a technology that has appeared in multiple Navy-affiliated patents filed by inventor Salvatore Pais. These patents describe hybrid aerospace undersea craft that can manipulate the quantum vacuum. Where does the money come from? This is where the double-entry black budget comes into play. Researchers argue that the Pentagon uses Project Slush funds. Have you ever wondered why the military pays $1,200 for a single coffee cup or $10,000 for a toilet seat? In a standard audit, this looks like incompetence or waste. In the world of the black budget, it's a brilliant accounting trick. That markup is a hidden tax. When you multiply those inflated prices across millions of transactions, you create a pool of billions of dollars that can be diverted to build orbital platforms and anti-gravity scout ships without a single taxpayer knowing. The most extreme corner of the Solar Warden theory involves the 20 and back claim. Whistleblowers like Corey Goode and Randy Kramer allege that the black budget isn't just funding ships, but an entire personnel system. They claim thousands of people are recruited into the secret space program, serve 20 years on lunar or Martian bases, and are then age-regressed and sent back in time to the moment they left, with their memories suppressed. While this sounds like the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster, the sheer scale of the Pentagon's unaccounted assets reaching nearly $4 trillion by some 2026 estimates makes you wonder if we are spending more on intelligence and special activities than the GDP of many developed nations, and yet our public space program is struggling to get back to the moon with 1960s-style rockets. Where is the innovation going? If Solar Warden exists, its mission is clear: Earth defense. The theory suggests that the black budget has turned our solar system into a fortress, protecting the planet from external threats, while the surface population remains blissfully unaware. We are told space is a void, Yet the military's own Black Ledger suggests it's a bustling theatre of operations. But keeping a fleet in space requires a massive support system on the ground. And as we will see next, the Pentagon hasn't just gone up into the stars. They've gone deep into the Earth, building a subterranean world that rivals the surface. The 1,000-mile tunnels. If you follow the money from the black budget, you'll eventually find that it leads straight into the ground. While the public looks to the stars for signs of advanced technology, a significant portion of the Pentagon's unaccounted trillions is reportedly being funneled into the most ambitious construction project in human history, a massive interconnected network of deep underground military bases, or DUMBs. The theory suggests that beneath the feet of an unsuspecting public lies a second, shadow infrastructure. These aren't just simple bunkers or fallout shelters. We are talking about self-sustaining subterranean cities, some the size of Manhattan, buried miles beneath the Earth's crust. According to whistleblowers and independent researchers, these facilities are designed to house the breakaway civilization, the elite, the military, and the scientists, in the event of a surface-level catastrophe, whether it be nuclear war or a natural X-event. The most famous entry point in the DUMB's mythos is the Denver International Airport. From its inception, the airport was plagued by massive cost overruns, billions of dollars over budget, and suspicious construction delays. Workers reported that 5 massive buildings were built incorrectly, and then rather than being demolished, were simply buried intact under the current airport structure. Observers have noted strange venting systems in the surrounding planes and massive fuel lines that seem far too large for a civilian airport. The theory? DIA is the civilian front for a massive underground hub that serves as the Western headquarters for the shadow government. The black budget didn't just pay for the runways, it paid for the miles of tunnels that allegedly connect Denver to the Cheyenne Mountain Complex and beyond. A project of this scale would normally be impossible to hide. But the black budget provides more than just money, it provides the tech. In the 1970s, the Los Alamos National Laboratory patented a device known as a subterrane. Unlike traditional tunnel-boring machines that use mechanical teeth to grind rock, the subterrane uses a nuclear-powered heater to melt through the earth, turning the surrounding rock into a smooth, glass-like lining as it moves. This vitrification process creates a tunnel that is structurally reinforced and virtually waterproof in a single pass. It is silent, efficient, and leaves no traditional tailings or dirt piles that would be visible to satellites. By using these machines, the Pentagon can create thousands of miles of tunnels without a single permit or public announcement. These tunnels are rumored to house high-speed maglev trains that can travel at Mach 2, allowing personnel to move from the Pentagon in Virginia to a base in Nevada in under an hour. The question always returns to the ledger. How do you hide the construction of an underground empire? You use M accounts. In government accounting, an M account or merged account is a bucket where unobligated funds go to die. When a department doesn't spend its full budget by the end of the year, that money is supposed to return to the Treasury. Instead, through a series of reprogramming maneuvers, that money is merged into secret accounts that never expire. These accounts are used to pay for the black construction contracts. Because the work is performed by private defense contractors with top-secret clearances, the labor costs, materials, and locations are all protected under national security NDAs. If a contractor talks about the 20-story deep elevator shaft they just built in the middle of the Ozarks, they face immediate imprisonment. The DUMB's theory poses a chilling question. What do they know that we don't? If the black budget is prioritizing subterranean survivalism, it suggests that the surface of the Earth is considered disposable. Whether they are preparing for a pole shift, a solar flare, or the inevitable fallout of the weapons they're building, the elite are hedging their bets. As we dig deeper into these underground mysteries, we find that these bases aren't just for storage, they are the laboratories for the most terrifying secret of all. Next, we move from the physical tunnels of the Earth to the digital tunnels of the human mind, where the black budget is being used to fight a war you don't even know you're in. The digital puppet master. As we have seen, the Pentagon's black budget has been used to conquer the skies and the subterranean depths. But the final frontier isn't a physical location. It is the 3-pound organ between your ears. Now we'll investigate the most invasive application of dark money ever conceived, neurowarfare. This is the study of the human brain as a battle space, and the conspiracy theories surrounding it suggest that the Pentagon has achieved a level of control that makes the Cold War's MK Ultra look like a playground experiment. The public first got a glimpse of this technology through the mysterious Havana syndrome. Starting in 2016, diplomats and intelligence officers in Cuba, and later worldwide, reported sudden debilitating symptoms, piercing sounds, intense pressure in the head, and permanent brain damage. While the official narrative shifted between mass hysteria and crickets, a 2022 panel of experts admitted that pulsed radio frequency energy was the most plausible explanation. In the shadow world, this wasn't a mystery. It was a field test. Conspiracy researchers argue that the black budget has funded a secret arm of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, to perfect directed energy weapons. These aren't just lasers that burn skin, they are frequencies tuned to the human nervous system. This technology, often referred to as V2K, voice-to-skull, utilizes the Frey effect to beam audio directly into a subject's cranium, bypassing the ears entirely. To the victim, it sounds like their own thoughts or the voice of God, making it the ultimate tool for psychological warfare and assassination without a trace. Where does $1 trillion go in the digital age? It goes into the sentient world simulation. This is a rumored black budget project that aims to create a continuously running mirror model of the real world. By siphoning the big data of our lives, our social media posts, credit card transactions, GPS movements, and even biometric data, this AI-driven simulation predicts how entire populations will react to a crisis. The conspiracy suggests that the Pentagon isn't just reacting to world events, they are gaming them in advance. If the black budget can fund a computer powerful enough to simulate the behavior of 8 billion people, then free will becomes a variable that can be managed. By injecting specific narratives or triggers through the media, funded by covert special activities budgets, the shadow government can steer the public toward a desired outcome, whether it's support for a new war or the acceptance of a global digital currency. Beyond control, there is the enhancement of the human form. The black budget is allegedly the primary engine behind transhumanist research. While public science focuses on curing diseases, black science focuses on the brain-computer interface. The goal is to create a soldier who can fly a drone by thought alone, or a super soldier who doesn't require sleep and can process information at the speed of a fiber optic cable. Whistleblowers have hinted at bio-SAPs, unacknowledged special access programs focused on genetic engineering, using the same reverse engineering logic applied to UAPs. These programs aim to unlock the junk DNA in the human genome to trigger dormant abilities. This is where the budget gets truly dark. Since these programs are unacknowledged, they are not bound by the Nuremberg Code or ethical oversight. They operate in the grey zones of international law, often in the very DUMB, as we discussed before. The most terrifying aspect of neuro-warfare is its invisibility. You can see a stealth bomber, you can hear a drilling machine, but you cannot feel the low-frequency wave that makes you feel a sudden surge of unexplained anxiety, or the suggested thought that isn't yours. The black budget has turned the very atmosphere into a medium for psychological control. As we reach the end of this story, all these threads, the missing trillions, the off-world tech, the underground cities and the mind control arrays converge. We are no longer talking about a department of the government. We are talking about a breakaway civilization that has used our money to build a future that we aren't invited to. The breakaway civilization. All the threads of this investigation lead to a single staggering conclusion. We are no longer just looking at a government with a spending problem. We are witnessing the maturation of what historian Richard Dolan calls a breakaway civilization. This is a secret, technologically superior culture that has used the Pentagon's black budget to fund its own evolution, effectively separating itself from the rest of humanity. To understand the scale of this separation, we only need to look at the numbers. As of December 2025, the Pentagon has failed its 8th consecutive audit. For fiscal year 2025, the Department of Defense admitted it could not account for a staggering $4.73 trillion in liabilities and assets. In fact, auditors were forced to issue a disclaimer of opinion for 15 different entities within the Pentagon because the financial data was so incomplete it was essentially invisible. To the average person, this looks like incompetence. But to those following the black budget, this is a deliberate feature. If you can't track $4.7 trillion, you can't track the construction of a secret space program, the maintenance of 1,000-mile tunnels, or the reverse engineering of off-world craft. The lost money isn't gone. It has been converted into a shadow infrastructure that exists entirely outside the reach of the American voter. The breakaway civilization isn't just a military junta. It is a corporate partnership. By siphoning public funds into private aerospace giants under waived special access programs, the architects of this system have created a legal dead zone. These corporations now hold patents for anti-gravity propulsion, zero-point energy, and advanced consciousness interface technology. By keeping this technology black, they ensure that the surface world remains dependent on 19th-century energy sources, oil, gas, and coal. While you pay for a rising power bill, the breakaway civilization is reportedly using energy systems that could power the entire planet for free. They aren't just hiding aliens, they are hiding a new era of human history to maintain their economic and political dominance over the surface population. As we move through 2026, the pressure on this shadow empire is reaching a boiling point. The 2026 National Defense Authorization Act has introduced new mandates requiring the Pentagon to brief lawmakers on UAP intercepts and classification guides that have been used to hide these programs for decades. We are seeing a civil war within the government. On one side are the transparency advocates, members of Congress and whistleblowers who believe the American people have a right to the technology they paid for. On the other side is the shadow guard, the unelected officials who believe the public is too fragile to handle the truth, or who simply want to keep their monopoly on the most powerful technology ever discovered. The ultimate goal of the breakaway civilization may be the Great Exit. Theories suggest they are building a lifeboat for the elite, using their secret moon bases and subterranean cities to survive a coming global crisis that the rest of us will be left to face alone. But there is another possibility. As the Pentagon's financial lies become too massive to ignore, and as whistleblowers continue to step forward, the black budget might finally crack. We are standing at the edge of a choice. Do we allow a small group of people to own the future? Or do we demand that the trillions of dollars and the world-changing technology they bought be returned to the people? The money isn't missing. The technology isn't alien. It's yours. And it's time we asked for it back.